the larger consumption of AI, other than healthcare, IoT, manufacturing, or surveillance, it will be more focused in defense. The Silicon Valley drives the wave of the consumption and largely to the world, not just focusing on North America. The money will flow, the capital will come into defense because of autonomous and AI driven, whether it is AI commanders, drones, submarines, everything will be focusing on AI. In defense sector, it's a sweet time to get your foot in the door, get into the success. So VCs are now understanding that, and the capital is flowing in that direction.
Hello and welcome to another edition of USISPF Conversations. This time it's one of the unusual ones. We're doing this in person, so breaking from the virtual mold and perhaps in the post-pandemic world, getting into an in-person conversation. As you can see, we're here in the USISPF offices and a lovely little virtual studio built up. And even more special is one of our members, Sahil Chawla, founder and CEO of TSecond. Sahil, welcome to Washington, D.C.
Thank you. Welcome me on the snowy day with the snow.
Well, that's why you're here, the warm conversation for a cold day is, people who can't see it, there's a lot of snow outside, but it's all warmth here and a lot more energetic warmth from Sahil Chawla. He's always a bundle of fresh air. So Sahil, I want to, start at the beginning for you. You have an engineering background. You followed a very traditional path, but that's where it stopped. You didn't follow a traditional path after that. You didn't go down the IT services company route. You said engineering to entrepreneurship. So the two E's have kind of defined your career so far. So tell us about that.
See, I believe my dad believed that I wanted to be a computer engineer, not specifically computer science engineer, but then I believe my sister is an electronic engineer, so she suggested me computer science is easy, take it up, do it, and that's it. But when I took it up back in 2010 in India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam visited, and I participated in Innovation Hub, where they were exhibiting some new ideas, and we won. And that was my turning moment where I thought, I'm not made for being a tech industry doing services job, but I want to build tech business. And reason being on that is, if you see the world is influenced by tech companies, top 5-10 companies are tech companies who influence the world. So I thought that is the opportunity starting young into tech world.
No, that's fascinating, Sahil. Fundamentally, engineering teaches you structure and thinking straight, but you wanted to break that structure in a society that was very risk averse. Like Nagpur is sort of where you grew up, it's where your roots are. It wasn't a time necessarily, maybe India is still coming into it a little more now, where people be like, you can just start a business, right? And especially when the people who started businesses had businesses to inherit or, without even having any formal work experience. So when you don't have that formal work experience leading a company, where did that idea come from, that fire that you could take the risk?
I would add I didn't grow up not in the tier 2 town like Nagpur. I grew up in a very small tier 4 kind of a place where I studied till 10th grade and then moved to Nagpur for the further studies. I realized coming from that area, a lot of wealth was created in traditional businesses, but a very less impact.
Yeah.
So I believe tech was the key where I could see any Japanese company or any Finland company like Nokia, a car company like Honda is coming up in a tier 2, tier 5, tier 6 towns of the countries like India and bringing so much impact, giving so much in one generation, 2 generations. So that was the moment as a child I thought I have to be in tech business. When I was growing up, studying up, I didn't get fascinated with the job mindset. I thought rather than going into traditional business, let's try your hands on tech business. And I was fortunate to learn, get good mentors, get good. Within 1 year, we got our first patent granted, and that was a moment which got us confidence that okay, you can do something. We raised easily $1 million, understanding, experimenting tech business. I spent a lot of money in just understanding the ecosystem, and if coming from our Silicon Valley, probably that $1 million would have put in right use rather than just learning curve. So that's what the difference between growing up in India and starting up in Bay Area.
No, that's very interesting, and I want to get to some of your Bay Area journey. But before I do that, you said you're one of the few people who have an international entrepreneurship parole approved. What does that even mean?
So I think this was started with Obama administration way back, and then Trump administration discontinued it, didn't grant it much. Then Biden reinitiated it, and I remember as far my lawyer explained me, there were only 25 grants for this, and it's a startup founder visa kind of thing, where a founder comes from another country, can start a company if he owns more than 10% of the company and have raised money locally, whether through government funds, grants, or through a VC in US, that you are eligible to file a 30 months, which is extended to more 30 months, to build a startup. And building means you have to give 5 jobs, you have to build certain revenue thresholds, create an ecosystem here that grants you a good opportunity to build. So you don't have to worry on visas, your approvals. You get a dependent as well, so you can bring your family here. So that's a very beautiful structure created for founders like us.
Interesting. Now, speaking of the entrepreneur journey, we've known you in the US and you're California based in the heart of Bay Area for TSecond. Tell us what TSecond is about, what it does, and it sounds a very cool name, but I know there's a lot of hard work, which is not as cool, but it's also, the startup journey is one where you work the hardest, the most, right?
So I believe people see hardware in a different way, but NVIDIA likes companies, Cisco's of the world has proven that hardware doesn't go anywhere. It just evolves. So that was the key point. We wanted to focus building something physically rather than just building a software on top of it. We are a combination of both. As a TSecond, we founded this in 2020. My co-founder is from Bay Area, spent 20 years in Bay Area focusing on storage expertise in his past. And that's where we started as a company creating edge storage and added a portfolio of AI accelerators inferencing at the edge. So now we focus on edge AI infrastructure, which is more focused, giving capability in one single box in the world of high density storage, which is up to 1 petabyte, and giving 1616 teraops of operation of AI inferencing in the same box. That's how our TSecond does.
Interesting. And one of the elements of what you do right now is a lot of work on iCET and INDUS-X, and I'm going to come to it a little bit because iCET was started a little 2 years ago. We saw the former NSA, Jake Sullivan, Ajit Doval brought about, and it's a cool acronym, Initiative for Critical and Emerging Technology. Tell us more about how someone like you is passionate about iCET or plays a role in building this technology bridge between US and India. We hear about digital handshakes. How are you part of that?
I think it started with a view of co-design, co-development, co-manufacture in defense or emerging critical technology, and INDUS-X was the initiative started with the Biden administration, and hopefully it will be continued with the Trump administration. And I believe we are the beneficial on both sides because coming from an Indian background, focusing in US, starting building some product on defense focused technology, it was very important that we replicate this success in India as well. And this initiative is empowering to share IP, to manufacture locally on both the sides. So we are the company who works with US Navy, US Army, US Defense. Similarly, we work with Ministry of Defense, DRDOs of India as well. So that gives us the visibility to build some cost-effective, innovative products locally in India as well as in US. So we manufacture both sides. So we have recently started some of the part in India, and we are completely manufacturing in US.
Absolutely.
So not dependent in countries like China. So it helps us with these initiatives to build on both sides.
One of the initiatives under iCET has been INDUS-X. As Samir Lalwani was just saying the other day, it sounds like India-U.S. Defense Acceleration System, and the X just sounds cool. You and I had a chance to work on INDUS-X together earlier in Stanford, Silicon Valley, and it's fascinating for people who don't know. It's a joint initiative between the Ministry of Defense and the Department of Defense, Pentagon, and units within those, and of course, a very important element, PE firms, VC firms, startups like yourselves. This is fascinating for me because for a long time, US-India relationship was seen as something between ministers, secretaries, and the private sector, not so much. But people like you are right now, it's like a mutual fund where you have a slice of the pie, where at the table, having your inputs. Isn't that how you see INDUS-X?
Yeah, of course. I think DIU as well as iDEX, both bodies within the defense is taking this initiative. Combination of academics, VCs, startups, private sector companies, and the federal companies on both sides is promoting to build defense technology. It's more of co-design, co-manufacture on both sides, and I think it is more important for countries like US and India. And we've been advocating that India becomes TA compliant. We become the ITAR compliance are better for countries like India. CFS, like investment in both sides, could be easier. So that's where the focus should be, and I think it's the start of the journey. It's a long way to go. We're still trying to cultivate the framework on the both side of with bureaucracies, but I think the intent from the top is there.
Right. And now, one of the interesting things right now, we saw that every relationship since Clinton 2.0, all the presidents have left the relationship with India much better, working on it. George Bush made the new civil nuclear deal. President Obama declared India as a major defense partner. Trump 1.0 had the STA1. Biden had iCET, INDUS-X. Trump 2.0. We've seen Trump 1.0, but what do you see with Trump 2.0 in the US-India defense and tech space?
I think we will replicate the success of commercial side of India-US ties in defense sector. So there is a large opportunity in India because India is a consumption country of defense and US is exporter of it, and both administration focus on self-reliant, and that's how both the countries, private sector will tie up, do JVs, do IP sharing, build locally, and provide that ecosystem to both the countries.
You also built another bridge, the bridge between Silicon Valley and Washington, because for a lot of time, the geographic distance was as good as their professional distance of understanding each other. Washington, D.C. was very government-centered, Silicon Valley was tech, and in some ways wanted to be away from all of that, right? But now you straddle these two worlds, and I'm just curious, how does Silicon Valley now look at defense and tech policy? You are obviously an example, but has the notion changed? Because Silicon Valley was once very military industrial complex, then went very social media apps, ride-hailing apps. Is it now coming back to thinking about the larger scheme of things, especially in the world of AI and quantum cyberspace?
See, when Silicon Valley drives the wave of the consumption, and largely to the world, not just focusing on North America, and Valley, the VC capital access is easier, and they put the money in the space where the consumption is high. Initially, when the tech was built for NASA's and for the federal side of things, the money was pouring in that sector. Then eventually, in last 2 decades, semiconductor, the social medias and the tech side of things, whether e-commerce, fintech came along, and a lot of money went there. But recently you see AI, the larger consumption of AI, other than healthcare, IoT, manufacturing, or surveillance, it will be more focused in defense. So the money will flow, the capital will come into defense because of autonomous and AI driven, whether it is AI commanders, drones, submarines, everything will be focusing on AI. So anyway, Silicon Valley has to build a bridge between the DC and more of Virginia, Pentagon, where companies are given time, because in defense sector it's a sweet time to get your foot in the door, get into the success. So VCs are now understanding that, and the capital is flowing in that direction.
Right. One more example, we always talk about AI, and Prime Minister Modi said AI is not just artificial intelligence, America and India. How do you see this AI race? We've seen the space race that defined the US, Soviet Union, Cold War. People see that somewhere with US, China. But of course, other players, India is a major player in AI, as China, as the United States, as parts of Europe. So how do you see the AI space now, as we just had the AI conference with Prime Minister Modi recently went to attend in Paris, the intersection between the private sector and public sector as we talk about tech for good?
I think AI this time is the first time when internet in 2000 came in. So a lot of innovation was happening in North America, then moved to Europe, then to Asia. And then there was control, laws, ethic committees built on how the internet will be used. Similarly, AI started here because of the infrastructure available here, but because of the application development availability across the world, whether it is China, whether it is India, whether it is Europe, whether it is US, it's decentralized. Everybody is trying to build on it. The accessibility is very high. So focusing on private sector, there will be a boom of creating new innovation using AI, which will be focusing on both the ties, and of course India, America, AI, and AI will play a bigger role in the next 2 decades. Just to add, the computing power requirement will go down tremendously down in maybe few years when quantum technology will become more commercialized.
Right.
And I believe India and US will be the forefront of building these blocks.
Do you see India and the US in the sense a Make in India with PLI schemes and a Make America Great Again about bringing manufacturing back to America? Do you see those two contradictory, or is there room for overlap?
No, it's a very win-win situation for both the countries. The consumption which happens in the North America market can be built in US and can be benefited for the jobs. And same way the consumption of US companies happens in Asia, focusing on South Asia and India, it can happen in India.
Okay, got it.
So India, previously there was only manufacturing, there was only one option, which is China. Then Taiwan built their expertise, Vietnam has built their expertise. So India is now in the verge of building their expertise. So a lot of companies, US companies, are eyeing to manufacture locally for India as well as the neighboring countries.
Got it. And one of the other things we always talk about apart from AI that's a hot buzzword is semiconductors. Because semiconductors, chips, I was fortunate to study under Professor Chris Miller, and he spoke about chip wars long before the book in the sense. So I'm just curious right now, where do you see semiconductor fabs and the manufacturing element, one in India, given that you are from, you said, a town that's tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, which would rely on some manufacturing, and two is the semiconductor chip playing a key part in things like electric vehicles, because you do need that kind of data storage and the data processing power for autonomous vehicles and, yes, as we've seen right now over here, so an electric vehicle. So how do you see the semiconductor space?
I think both the countries have come up with the right policy, CHIPS Act here and CHIPS Act in India. Both are synergy, have taken a lot of references with each other, and both has given a good budget, federal budget for focusing on CHIPS Act in here. Last year we saw $6 billion to Intel, few billions dollar to Micron, to TSMC, to a lot of folks.
Right.
Similarly, India is giving a lot of initiative, taking CHIPS Act, creating joint venture between Western countries and Indian country to build a locally OSAT facility, whether it is design focus, whether it is manufacturing. I think India is still a long way to create wafers from the scratch and build foundries. But the advantage in US is that US has that kind of ecosystem and infrastructure where India will leverage this and build a lot of innovation on top of it.
Technology is about the future, and it's very hard to predict the future. As you've seen, we've got weather forecasts wrong as well. But if you sitting there, seeing what you've seen in Silicon Valley, what you've seen in Washington, what you've seen in India, how do you forecast the US-India relationship in the tech space? What does the next 2035, 2045 look like for you?
I think India is focusing on to be a developed nation and $29 trillion economy. So India is more consumer side of things where they consume a lot of stuff from the world, and US is being forefront of innovation, creating right technology. I would personally believe two sectors will largely impact the world is AI and quantum technology. This both sector hand in hand will change the scenario in healthcare, in IoT, manufacturing, in enterprise, and focusing on defense sector. This both side of things will give a ease of creating power on both sides.
Right. On that note, Sahil Chawla, thank you so much for powering up our day and powering up this conversation. And hopefully we'll have you back again and doing more of these in-person podcasts. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it.